So our app of the week this week. Go ahead.
Well, it's Pandora.
You're going to do the, voice?
It's Pandora. Welcome to Pandora.
And
watch out for blue creatures and music.
Everybody knows if you do not live under 3 rocks and a blanket of sedimentary rock, you know what Pandora is if you use a mobile device, even if it's just an iTouch.
Yep.
Which is where I got introduced to it. Probably the most popular streaming internet radio that exists. Easily, by far.
Yeah.
And they are involved with the Music Genome Project. And actually, the creator of it, Tim Westergren, made this year's Time 100 list. They announced it earlier this week, which is like really cool. One of the most influential people out there right now. And wildly successful, spans desktops, laptops, phones, MP3 players, and now tablets with the iPad and Android, I'm assuming, in the future.
Yep.
And so with us, we have Tom Conrad, the CTO of Pandora. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
It's great to be here.
And like I said earlier this week, thank you for we had some confusion about whether or not we were going to have a show. So thank you for putting up with us and not schetelling something else in favor of us immature clowns over here.
We do appreciate that.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Worked out perfectly.
So tell us a little bit about and for those who have maybe never seen Pandora, who have never actually not heard of it, because I'm sure they have, but have never used it. Why don't you explain to us a little bit about how Pandora began, how it works, and how it works in conjunction with the Music Genome Project?
Sure. So Pandora is a personalized internet radio service. The basic idea is you tell us about an artist or song that you love, and then we start from that artist, say, and then play other music that we think that you'll fall in love with too. So the idea is to take kind of the really simple character of traditional radio and combine it with the power of the internet and the power of mobile and the power of smartphones and deliver something really, really personalized that really suits your particular musical tastes. The company's actually been around, if you can believe it, for 10 years. Pandora's history really only covers about 6 years of that. When the company was founded, we were working on something called the Music Genome Project, and that continues to this day, and it's kind of the foundation of everything that we do here. And basically what that's about is we have a team of about 25 professional musicians who come to the office every day, put headphones on, listen to music one song at a time, and analyze each song across 400 different musicological dimensions. Wow. So not just are there guitars, but what kind of guitars, how are the guitars played, what role does the guitar play in the overall composition. And we use that to create a kind of fingerprint or DNA code for each song, which we can then use to help us match songs together. So when you say, you like the new Black Eyed Peas song, we can find other things that are musically similar and use that as a starting point to kick off this radio-like experience.
Very cool. I love the idea of just a bunch of professional musicians just coming. What a great, you've given them the greatest job that they could possibly have, the most job security, but yet they get to listen to music all day and analyze. That's
I don't know. Somebody's got to listen through all the crappy genres too, though.
That's true. Yeah, somebody has to listen to Heidi Montag. So
yeah, it is a pretty good fit for the lifestyle of a professional musician. Pretty much everyone that works for us is a touring and musician themselves, and so they'll come and they'll work for a few months, and then they'll go on the road and go on tour and come back. And incredibly talented group.
Very cool. And so so for anybody who doesn't know, Pandora's free to use. And would you be willing to explain how it being free works and how Pandora functions in regards to plays per hour, monthly limits, and the like?
Yeah, sure. So the thing that lets us deliver Pandora in this sort of ad-supported free format is that it's a radio-like service. There are other services out there that are on-demand services like Rhapsody, for example, or Spotify in Europe, and those operate under an entirely different set of licensing conditions. In the case of Pandora, we have this special license specifically for doing a radio-like service, and that puts certain limits on the service, like we can't play a particular song on demand for you, and we can't let you skip more than a certain number of times an hour, and we have to play kind of a variety of music. We can't, when you say that you want to listen to the Beatles, we can't create a station that plays nothing but the Beatles. It has to, play the Beatles and other things that are similar. The basic idea being that radio is a tool for introducing you to new artists that you might go out then and buy from iTunes or buy from Amazon or even sign up for Rhapsody and then stream on demand, and that all those things create more revenue streams for the rights holders and the artists and so on. But Pandora is ad-supported free. There is a small percentage of our listeners who listen for more than 40 hours a month, kind of people who come and put Pandora on from morning to night. And for those people, we ask that they either pay us 99 cents to listen for an unlimited number of hours for the month, or we ask them to subscribe to kind of our premium product, which we call Pandora One, which has a bunch of other benefits. It eliminates all advertising, and it has a really cool desktop app. It streams at 192 kbits per second, so you get a higher audio quality, and there's some neat kind of little features around the edges. So, but really only a tiny percent of our users, less than 5%, hit that cap any month. An even smaller percentage subscribe. So really, fundamentally, Pandora is this ad-supported free service, just like every radio on the dial in your FM radio.
Very cool.
I have to note I have a Pandora One account.
Awesome.
I use all the time.
Awesome.
Yep, definitely worth it.
I have a lot of friends, and just who were, when I told them I was going to be talking to you today, Tom, like they were just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, tell them thank you. Like I use Pandora like to find all these great new bands,
All the
and
time.
yeah, like it's such a great service. So, and if you were in a band or you were a musician looking to be in Pandora and part of the Music Genome Project, what is the process? And this is a two-part question. So, what would that process be? And then also, does Pandora have any? This is a question from one of our Twitter users. Does Pandora have any interest in finding ways to integrate unsigned bands or indie artists? And if so, how would you handle royalties for that?
Yeah. So that's one of the really cool things about the service is it's pretty democratizing with respect to the opportunities for artists, because it starts with this whole kind of musicological underpinning. If you put together a song or a record that is a kind of musicologically similar to some artist that's like that's charting right now. So maybe you put together something that's really similar to the Black Eyed Peas or to whoever else is at the top of the charts. The Pandora system may well match your music to the starting point Black Eyed Peas, and so sort of instantly you could have this huge audience on Pandora. And it does that without paying any attention to popularity or any of the things that normally control, what gets played where. So it's a great opportunity for independent artists, unsigned bands, performers who are just getting their start. And really, that was the motivation for starting the company in the first place. Tim, our founder, himself was a touring professional musician. He's got all kinds of stories about driving all over the Pacific Northwest, living out of a van and playing gigs in the early and mid '90s, and that was just his life. And he was inspired by the kind of the power of the internet to create some tools that would help artists that were in that same situation. So the way that you get your music on Pandora is you can submit it directly to us online. If you visit www.pandora.com, there's a help button in the top right-hand corner, and that takes you to an FAQ. And one of the questions near the top of the screen is, how do I submit my music for possible inclusion in Pandora? And that'll take you to a little portal on the web. We have you fill out some paperwork that makes it clear that you're the sort of legal owner of the music. We have you upload 3 example pieces from your catalog, and then there are people internally that review the music that's submitted and make a determination about whether or not the content is kind of, for want of a better term, ready for radio. and about 60% of the music that's submitted through that mechanism ends up on the air on Pandora. And at that point, the artist, we hope, has registered with Sound Exchange, and is working with either ASCAP or BMI if they're the songwriter for the music. And every track that plays on Pandora, we pay a royalty to Sound Exchange and to ASCAP and to BMI, and they pay out to both the performing artist and to the songwriter. One really cool thing about the internet radio system is we use this organization called Sound Exchange that handles all of the royalties, and maybe unlike any other part of music, the record label gets half of the royalty and the performing artist gets the other half. Regardless of advances or anything else, it's always a 50-50 split. And if you talk to people about the royalties they get, say, for the records that they make or the songs that they sell on iTunes, it's a really different story.
Yeah, they get 3 cents, and the record company's like, mine.
I have a quick question. So based on what you've said, and my understanding of it, which I think is correct, it's more advantageous to sound like another band if you're a new band. So in other words, SEO in your universe would be to optimize your music in such a way that it sounds like the Beatles or whomever. If I'm Frank Zappa, and let's say Frank Zappa doesn't exist, and I just do something crazy Zappa style, that would not necessarily sound, or probably wouldn't sound like anything else at all. So I would therefore I would have a lower music rank, if you will, than other bands. Is that correct or not?
I suppose there's a certain amount of truth to that. It's sort of equally true though that if you make your music sound like the Black Eyed Peas and the Black Eyed Peas are huge, or sound like the Beatles and the Beatles are huge, the same thing exists in the rest of the universe. People
Right.
have their ears kind of tuned to what's popular, and music sort of from an era standpoint starts to sound kind of similar. We've got a whole bunch of bands right now that sound like 80s bands. I think they're better than any of the bands we actually had in the 80s, but it's no coincidence that they all have this really, kind of similar sound. That just happens, and it's because, people are followers at some level. But I think it's equally true that, almost every performer that I encounter, is only modestly driven by the sort of financial dimension, or the commercial dimension rather, of what they're trying to do. They first and foremost are artists, and they have a melody they want the world to hear, and they're much more inclined, in my experience, to have it sound like whatever their sort of natural voice is than to try to do some kind of pseudo SEO kind of on the music front.
Cool. I'm gonna email you my band CD.
There you go.
So one of our other users is wondering, after Spotify's upgrade, how important are social features to your service? And my question, in addition to that, is: are there any plans that you can talk about to integrate other social networking platforms with or into Pandora?
Yeah, when I think about music, I tend to think that they're kind of three things that people engage in around music. There's the kind of act of music discovery, finding new bands, which leads to two desires: a desire to purchase, so you can listen to it kind of on demand, and a desire to share it with other people. And so I think of kind of sharing music, telling people about your discoveries, is one of the sort of fundamental dimensions of music. And so kind of integrating social features into the service, I think, is really core to the potential of Pandora. And we actually have a pretty long history of doing these things. We've always had mechanisms that allow you to share the stations that you're creating with others, to send songs through email, or to post them to your profile, share them with others. We've had widgets and things that you can embed on social networks of the past. We have pretty deeply integrated solutions both for Twitter and Facebook for sharing things that you're discovering with a single click. So you're hearing a song or you're listening to a station, you click a button and that flows into your news feed or into your status updates on Twitter. And most recently, I guess this goes back just a week ago, we were on stage at F8 with Mark Zuckerberg and the rest of the Facebook team, announcing that we were their launch partner for a bunch of the new initiatives that they've undertaken. And so if you visit Pandora today and you're a Facebook user, we make it really, really easy to integrate all of the friends that you've accumulated on Facebook into Pandora. And I mean, to give you a sense of what that might mean, I think I've got on the order of 900 friends on Facebook, and 700 of them are on Pandora as well. And just instantly, you're connected with them. You can see what they're listening to. You can listen to their stations. You can leave messages for them on Pandora. You can post things back to Facebook. And I think my favorite thing that we've done, though, is that we've tried to create a really kind of passive experience that without you doing anything at all, when you encounter a song that one of your friends likes, we proactively tell you. So you might be sitting back listening to a station and a song plays, and up on the screen will pop, Tom Conrad likes this as well, because Pandora knows that you and I are friends, and you can see that I've created a station from that band, or maybe I've given it a thumbs up. And that gives you an opportunity to send me a message or to share something that you're listening with. And all of these things have been live on the system for just a week, and we already have well over 1 million people interacting with them. And it's actually a pretty exciting upgrade for us.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So do you guys see, this is just out of my own ridiculous curiosity, do you guys see a potential market in a music video version of Pandora, especially with 4G coming out, and there's all this talk about how everything's gonna be streaming, and for me, I love seeing stuff like music videos, and for me, I'm very visual. I like seeing music videos, but I sort of think it's died. Music videos have sort of died or gone into a lull in the last 10 years or so. Now with musicians or artists like Lady Gaga, and people are making videos that are getting huge amounts of traffic on the internet. Are you guys? Is that something you guys would do, or would you leave that to another company to sort of develop and come up with?
It's something that we periodically look at, and there's a bunch of reasons that it would be attractive to do something like a Pandora for music videos. There are a couple of things that have kept us from some sort of exploring that space to this point. Part of it is that while we're pretty easily the biggest internet radio service, about half of all internet radio streaming is Pandora these days in the United States. We're just a tiny little drop in the bucket of overall radio listening. So if you take satellite radio and all the terrestrial radio stations all over the country and all the internet radio stations, and you put them all together, we're not even 2% of all of the hours of radio that are listened to, and Clear Channel is over 20%. So,
Clear Channel is an evil corporation.
So we have,
wow.
we still have, I think, a tremendous opportunity to grow the service and really change the landscape of music just by focusing on radio. Mm-hmm. And so we like to kind of focus and stick to our knitting just sort of generally. The challenge with video in particular is that there aren't very many music videos, really. There's something on the order of 25,000 music videos in circulation right now. And so this idea of sort of personalizing against that pool is maybe a lot less interesting than, personalizing against a pool of, millions or tens of millions of songs, which is what we do every day on Pandora in the audio space. And then to your point, kind of, yes, there is tremendous demand for videos, but it's really hit driven. I mean, the number of people who want to listen to Lady Gaga is, 1,000 orders of magnitude greater than even the 600 most popular band that makes a video. So it drops off incredibly quickly.
As opposed to OK Go.
We keep looking at it. I think it's something we'd all like to do someday, but I'd like to focus on taking another big bite out of that overall radio listening hours before we go off and try other things.
So when Jeff Ammons buys his Android-powered car,
Soon.
Are you guys? Do you guys think that something you would look into would be Pandora Radio already built into, for example, an Android-powered car?
Yeah, so that's a really, really big initiative for us right now. Another thing we did last week was a really busy week, was we announced with Ford that Pandora will become a standard feature on the new Ford Fiesta, which is an incredibly popular car.
It's a party car
in Europe. And, party car. Coming to the United States later this year, and the way they've done that is they've taken the sync system that they developed and have integrated it with Android phones, BlackBerry phones, and ultimately with the iPhone as well, which allows you to get in your car. You're listening to Pandora on your Droid. Over Bluetooth, it will automatically and seamlessly connect to the dash.
Oh my God.
What you're listening to will show up on the display in the dash. You'll be able to push a button on the steering wheel and use voice command to change channels, to rate songs, to like kind of have the full Pandora interactive experience. And that's just going to be a standard feature on this, really high volume car. And we already have automotive solutions at retail with both Alpine and Pioneer, and we're working with every automotive manufacturer you could name to try to figure out how we can quickly get Pandora into lots and lots of cars, because almost half of radio listening, 48% I think, takes place in a car. And so for us to kind of do anything other than to really focus on getting there is to ignore really half of the opportunity.
One of our viewers wants to know if there's any other vehicles besides the Ford Fiesta coming up soon, like that you know of or that have been announced. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but if you guys know of any.
Yeah, today you can go to Best Buy and buy an aftermarket in-dash receiver from Alpine that will integrate with Pandora. Pioneer has a similar product. And then there's nothing I can specifically talk about except to say the automotive world has definitely taken notice of what Ford has done and is anxious to bring Pandora pretty ubiquitously to the U.S. market.
Yeah, I'm sure because of, I mean, especially here in Southern California, I mean, you spend, what is it, like 60% of your time in a car? I live in my car pretty much, like with all the driving that I do. And you're absolutely right. Like that is when I do all my radio listening. I don't tend to listen to the radio elsewhere. And I know even at the office that I work at, we listen to Pandora like during the day. I mean, that's it. So I think that's, especially as people become more and more dependent on mobile devices and smartphones in general, especially with Android coming up and iPhone 4 and even BlackBerry 6 to some extent and Windows Mobile 7. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more integration, and it's really great to hear that you guys are sort of jumping on that as opposed to sort of waiting and seeing and hedging your bets. Like I really like that you guys are kind of going all out on that.
I have a question real quick. How do you guys differentiate between platforms in terms of thinking about new features or keeping features, losing features? Because I noticed there's some differences between the web interface and then on the phone you can't make a station more interesting. You can't add a new song via the mobile app, or if you're in your car, obviously you're not going to be able to scroll through a bunch of songs and that sort of thing. How do you guys deal with that?
That's a constant challenge. I mean, Pandora is not only available on the web and iPhone and Android, but it's on, BlackBerry as well, and it's on Palm WebOS, and then we've got literally 100 consumer electronics implementations. I mean, you were talking just before we turned the topic over to Pandora about, the Android operating system on televisions. We're on, tens of different television models and all these different Blu-ray players and set-top boxes and tabletop radios, and so there is a bit of a trick to try to figure out like what's the feature mix going to be on each of those, because we're still a little company. There's 180 of us in total. My product team is about 40, and we can't do everything that we would like to do, and so we're just constantly kind of making judgment calls about kind of where to focus our energy. I mean, actually a pretty good example is we've been putting a lot of energy in the mobile side, particularly on Android, into building these automotive solutions. We really think Android's a great platform to enhance the automotive experience, and so I've got a bunch of people now who are working on all of the infrastructure of the Android phones to integrate with cars. And in fact, the 4 demonstrations have all been with Motorola Droids. We do that, for the moment, instead of doing things like adding the ad variety feature to the Android application. And so, unfortunately, we just kind of have to constantly make those trade-offs, and it'll take some time until there's parity across the platforms. Although I have to say, personally, one of the things I love about the mobile versions of Pandora is I really do think that part of what makes Pandora work is that it's simple. And there are plenty of days when I look at, Pandora on my Droid and I look at Pandora on the web, and I think that the Droid implementation gets more to the essence of what Pandora is than the web does with all of its dozens of sort of secondary features. So there's a real balance there.
So it just occurred to me how cool it would be to be driving in a Ford Fiesta, and so you're listening to Pandora and you're sitting in traffic, and then you can hit like a LAR button and you can see what everyone around you is listening to while you're sitting in traffic.
Oh.
That'd be awesome. Anyway, I'm sorry. I was just like imagining this.
Not necessarily safe for driving.
No, of course not.
But kind of awesome.
I've never claimed to be a safe driver. So is there anything? One of our viewers wanted to ask the question, is there anything that you feel is obviously wrong with Pandora on Android? Is there anything in particular that you feel just needs to be fixed? And also, probably the number one question I've been asked this week is, when is Pandora coming to Europe?
Okay. Both really good questions. I think in a way we touched on the answer to the first question in that last round. I would love to get the Android application kind of functionally more to parity with both the web and what we've done on the iPhone. The Android version of Pandora is it's about 9 months younger than our iPhone application, and so it has a bit of kind of growing up to do to get to functional parity with the iPhone build, and I'm anxious to have that happen. I'm also really excited to bring some of the social features I was talking about to the mobile experience. All of the stuff I just described that we've done with Facebook currently lives just on the website, and I think a lot of those sort of sharing features would have a really, really interesting home in the mobile space. Frankly, not unlike what you sort of jokingly talked about with LAR. Absolutely, I want to make it so that when you're out with a bunch of friends, you can all pull your phones out and just instantly see what the other people are listening to and trade stations back and forth. Right. We've just got to do that. So I'm really excited about being able to get to that at some point.
Almost like a Pandora Twitter, where you can see tweets within your proximity, what everyone's listening
absolutely.
to.
I'd like to be able to leave stations behind places as graffiti. So you go to the bar
sweet.
and you go, I'm going to drop my Don't Stop Believin' station here.
This is my journey stop.
Exactly.
Pretty sweet.
So lots of fun things to explore there over time. Question about Europe and internationally more generally is a great one. One of the really frustrating things about doing anything in the music space is that everything you do is kind of defined by the licensing terms that you operate under, and unfortunately, music licensing is defined country by country. Even when you take something like Universal Music, which is a huge multinational company that controls the rights for a tremendous amount of the music that we play, we still have to go and do a deal with Universal Canada and Universal UK and Universal Japan to get the rights to play music inside of Pandora in those locations. So you have all the record labels to do that with, and there's well over 1,000 record labels that we play on Pandora. There's some aggregators that take that number down, but there would be certainly tens of record label deals to do in every single country. And then on top of that, you have to make sure that the songwriters get paid. So the record labels, they record the recording, and oftentimes they control the rights for the performance of the song itself. But if you've got a band that's doing a Bob Dylan song and we play it on Pandora, we not only play the record label that recorded it, the band that performed it, but also Bob Dylan gets paid. Well, Bob Dylan's rights as a songwriter are one of his great assets, and he can actually literally sell them to different owners in each and every country. So you got to go off and do the same kind of deals around songwriting. We've had people working on international licensing for Pandora, particularly with a focus on Europe and Asia, for almost 4 years, and unfortunately still not able to say confidently that Pandora is coming to any of those places anytime soon, other than to say, it's absolutely our vision. It's something that we really want, but we need to find a way to do it that under economic terms that will allow the company to survive. And so as frustrating as it is, all we can kind of do is be patient and continue to have these conversations and hope that we get to the point where there's a kind of win-win solution where Pandora can come to these places and listeners win and artists win and record labels win, and we're just trying to find the right formula for that.
That's cool. Well, at least you're honest. I mean, I would rather you say, right now, we don't, you guys don't have a timeline, but you're actively been working on it, but, no timeline yet. Because as opposed to having somebody say, yeah, well, hopefully we're going to have it next year, and then you have a bunch of people Twittering you, Tom, going, where's my Pandora?
Right.
Do you have any more questions, Jeff?
No, I was just going to make a comment. I spent 6 months in Germany, and that was sad times. Every time I go to Pandora, I forget about it. And about once a month, I go to Pandora, and oh, no.
Yeah. When we launched the service, the terms of service said you have to live in the United States, and we did a little zip code verification to try to make sure that people were only using the States. And I think we sort of naively, looking back, thought that, well, since we're a U.S.-based service, it will grow here. We won't do any marketing in other places. Well, in that first year, Pandora was adopted with some enthusiasm by people who, according to our records, lived somewhere in Beverly Hills. There's a lot of 90210 registrations in Pandora during that period, with people with German names. But that's actually a true story.
That's great.
But when we got I think it was about a year in, maybe 18 months in, it became really clear, despite our efforts, that it was going to take a long time to get these deals done. And yet the company, as I mentioned, is a company of professional musicians, and we actually have tremendous respect for copyright. We really want artists to get paid, and we just woke up one day and went, it's pretty clear that these deals are going to take a while. We have to take steps to shut the service down, because it's just not really respecting copyright the way we want to in these places. So we put in place the IP blocking that made that possible. So that was a sad day. Was the point of that story. It's a terrible day.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
No more Werner von Glockenspiel from the
exactly. From the 90210.
Yes. Right. I just like shopping on Rodeo Drive. It's so nice.
It's my favorite. Last question. How do your developers feel in terms of programming for Android versus other operating systems? Is it easier to develop for any particular OS, and if so, why?
We've had a pretty good experience with all of the modern mobile operating systems, and for different reasons. The great thing about Android for us is that our entire application stack is written in Java, which is a little OSO Web 1.0, but nevertheless, that's the set of tools that we use for building Pandora. And so it made it really, really easy to take the existing development team and sort of put them to work on developing our Android solution. We've also found, the other great thing about Android is just this completely modern code base, and so it's very well thought out. The tools are maturing at a nice clip. So we've had a really great experience. And I got to give the Android ecosystem a lot of credit for, I think, the first time in the mobile space cracking the code on maintaining compatibility in a world where the software infrastructure is delivered by a different entity than the hardware infrastructure. That story for J2ME and Brew and even Windows Mobile was very different. It was really, really hard to create a single application executable that ran reliably across a wide range of, say, Brew or J2ME handsets. And when Android was just a notion, I was really concerned that it would end up the same way, and I was just wrong. I mean, it works quite well.
We definitely complain about it a lot, though. We're like, it's so fragmented, or is it get all together? And now, like, I mean, geez, like everybody's like,
I'm the chief complainer, but I'm
well,
done.
a bunch of Android, but they're already talking about 2.2, and if it's coming out in June, there's phones that are still on 1.5. Like the Hero and the Moment are like, they're like, well. And they're going to get 2.1 and 2.2 will come out and everyone will be like, I want 2.2. Like, it's so, but I cannot thank you enough. I think it's all the time we have, but I cannot thank you enough. And from everybody here, like, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know that your time is very valuable, and we really appreciate having you on the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. This has been great fun.
Yeah, and when Jeff gets his Ford Fiesta and gets Pandora going on it, I just love the idea of you driving around a Ford Fiesta and you just yelling out your windows, "It's a party in my car!"
It's a cool little car. It really is.
I know, that's what makes it so great. That's totally not you.
It's too cute for you.
It's so, I know.
You're all invited to the party in my car.
That's what she said. I'm sorry. I'm immature. All right. But yeah, so anybody out there, Pandora is free on the Android market, and you are totally missing out on pretty much a no-brainer must-have app for your mobile phone, for your desktop, laptop, pretty much anything you have if you don't have it yet. So go online and you can go to Pandora.com. You can find Pandora at Pandora_radio on Twitter. And Tom, do you want to tell anybody your Twitter handle?
Oh, sure. I'm just T Conrad, TCONRAD.
So if you want to go ahead and ask Tom when Pandora is still coming to Europe, feel free to just jump on Twitter.
That's right.
And ask him.
Tweet him mercilessly.
And if you have any other questions for Tom that we didn't get to or that we didn't have time for, I would be. Actually, you know what? There's one more question, and I promised I would get to it. Which is, it's a short iPhone question, but as more iPhone owners buy iPads, do you think they will drop iPhone in favor of Droid? Like, so as more people buy iPads, do you think they're going to start maybe going toward a Droid? Like, especially with Pandora's application on the iPad is really nice.
It's great. Yeah, actually, I've been running
it's beautiful.
Thanks.
And I have to say, I'm really looking forward to not only Pandora on Android tablets when they come out, but I'm also really looking forward to it on WebOS tablets when they come out, because HP is going to have that in the pipeline.
Given recent events, you know it.
Yeah, so do you think, I'm just curious, like, for everybody, like, do you guys think that as more people start getting multimedia devices like tablets, in terms of that, do you think that they will be dropping their iPhones because of the coverage, because of functionality, whatever, in favor of phones that do a little more, or do, like, what do you guys think?
They're different things. The tablet is not a replacement for your phone. So I don't believe that, just because I have a tablet of any sort, whether it's Android or Apple, that I'm going to get rid of my either iPhone or Android device.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually think the more interesting question in that entire space, from my own experience at least, is, what does it do to kind of share of hours for laptops? I mean, I find, I still use my phone absolutely the same amount, but I use my laptop a lot less thanks to the iPad. So I think that's the really interesting thing to watch. I mean, I think there's a chance that these tablets really become the true personal computer, and that has, really fascinating implications. It'd be fun to watch.
Yeah. I have lots of friends who are like, they barely touch their laptops anymore. Because really all they use it for is just, surfing the web, writing emails, Twitter, whatever.
Space of a couple of weeks, I've actually noticed the exact same thing with people here in the office. It's
way dropped down.
The behavior shifted almost overnight.
Yeah, I don't know.
I got one, and I still I still use my desktop at home a fair amount.
Well, that's just you, because you're an Apple bigot. That's why.
Yeah, it's
You're
true.
like, I got one and I hit it with a golf club.
No,
right.
when you get your Android tablet, that
So
will be your
angry.
test.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
true. That
When you
will
get
be-
an Android tablet,
I'm
like
still
that'll
waiting.
be the test.
I've been following that avidly.
That'll be the
soon.
test for sure. All right, well, Tom, thank you so much again. Tom Conrad, CTO of Pandora. Really appreciate having you on, and hopefully someday we'll have you back again, talk more about new and exciting things that you're doing with Pandora. So thank you for coming on.
Anytime. Thanks so much.